Hello everyone, in this video let us talk about versions of workflow in Jira. So in Jira, when you modify a workflow and when you save it after doing your changes, you have the option to save a backup of the workflow that you just modified. Now, why I'm talking about this saving a backup of the workflow? Well, there was a question on the community recently from a user called Arti, and Arti is asking about to go back to a particular point in time with respect to workflow, and she's asking about uh, that in their organization they probably did some changes, and basically when they modified the workflow it messed up the status of all the bugs, and now they are trying to go back to the previous version. So there are two things here. Number one, when you are modifying a workflow, just make sure that you create a backup, because you always have the option to go back to the last working state. And the second point is that when you modify a workflow and when you do any changes with the, let us say, status, maybe in the new workflow you have maybe less or more statuses, and if you modify the workflow on the project, all the issues that are affected by that change in the workflow, you need to map the old status to the new status. So when you map those statuses, you are basically doing some kind of a bulk change in Jira, and so that is something that you need to be aware of. So my suggestion would be to simply save a backup, and there are few things that you can do here. For example, let us say if I modify one of my workflow, let me just open one of my workflow like Jira copy. This is basically a workflow that I usually keep as a reference. So this is again one of the best practice that keep a copy of your original working configurations, that the configurations that comes with Jira. But again, the question was more about having some kind of a backup, which is fine, but it is not really possible for each and every change that you do. So when you are, let us say, modifying a workflow, you have the option to publish it, and when you publish it, the tool Jira will actually give you this opportunity to save a backup. So when you save a backup, you have the option to copy, save a copy of a workflow, and then you can always go back. The other thing that you can also possibly do is you can export this workflow as an XML file, or you can also use this feature called export your workflow as a workflow. So let us see how we can use it. So if I click on the export your workflow, it will give you some instructions. You need to just go through the interface, this wizard, and you will get this JWB file, which can be imported back to your instance or maybe to another instance. It depends on whether that instance is similar to the one that you're working on. But the the short answer is that no, there is no version saved by Jira for each and every small change that you're doing, and you don't really have an option to go back unless you save the last working copy as a as a backup, which is something that you should do as a good practice. Also, keep on taking a backup of your workflow as an XML or maybe as a JWB file whenever you can. But in my opinion, one of the best thing that you can do and you should do is keep a document of your configuration or any schemes that you have in Jira. So let us say you have a page or some documentation where you have the list of all the states and transitions and all the conditions, validations, and post functions. I know it can be a bit tiring, but I think this is something that you should try to achieve. Have some standard configurations, have some standard schemes, and you should document them, and you should also keep a copy of them somewhere safe. So don't really make change without analyzing the impact. And this is a perfect example where a change in Jira can basically mess up something. It can affect the users, and it can affect the usage of the tool. It can be a bit difficult for you to revert unless you have a backup, and which is again a painful process. But I think when you have a reference point, when you have some copy of, let us say, the workflows, it is always easier to just take it and and basically restore it. But in my opinion, as I mentioned before, try to achieve some standardization when it comes to the configurations and schemes in Jira. So this is all I wanted to share in this video. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and you learned something new today. Thank you very much.